everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Rachel from Evelyn and Peter, and today I have a new crochet design for you guys. This one is a bag and it's a full walkthrough of how to make the bag. This is what it looks like. So super cute, uses cotton yarn. You can hold it like this with two straps, and it's kind of threaded through all around the opening of the bag. And then this is my favorite part. You can pull the strap to one side to close it. Let me show you. Kind of like that. So I just pulled it all the way through, and then you can wear it crossbody like this, which I think is super cute. So I used Lion Brand's 24/7 cotton yarn for this bag, and I have all the exact yardage and everything like that in the written pattern. And then I also used a 4mm crochet hook, and then you're also going to need a yarn needle to weave in the ends, and some scissors of course, and a measuring tape just to measure the strap length. So in the pattern, in the video, I used a smaller version of the bag to show you working it up. So when I'm doing the pattern here in this tutorial, mine's going to look a lot smaller than yours because I just used a little, actually here it is right here so you can see, I just used a little miniature version swatch type thing to show you how to do it, but I still walk you through the entire thing to show you how. But I recommend following along with the written pattern, which is free on my blog, and I'll link that in the description. And then it also is a kit on linebrand.com. The kit comes with the pattern plus all the yarn that you need to make your bag. And then I also have the PDFs available in my Etsy and Ravelry shops if you prefer like the ad-free printed version. So just be aware of that when you are following along with the video tutorial, that this is the miniature version. So I recommend watching or reading the written pattern as you go to see the exact stitch count and everything like that, just to make sure you are on track. And then when I get to the trim section, that's when I switch over to this actual bag, so that will look the same once you get to that point. But yeah, I think that is all there is to it. It's pretty simple once you learn the stitch. I'm using the feather stitch in this bag. Show it up close. It's really pretty, a really fun stitch. So in the beginning of every single row, you will be starting off with a beginning feather stitch, and then your feather stitches throughout the row will stay the same, and including at the end of the row. Every single row starts with a half double crochet chain one, and you end every row with a chain one and a half double crochet in the last stitch. So just be aware of that, and then it's just feather stitch throughout. So I hope you guys like this pattern. It's really fun to make. It's really quick and simple. I did the entire body of the bag in one piece, so you just have a little bit of seaming to do on the bottom and side. And I think that's it. Let me know if you guys have any questions in the comments, and thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. So to get started, you need some worsted weight cotton yarn. I'm using Lion Brand's 24/7 cotton in the color taupe, and the exact yardage that you need is in the written pattern, so you can check that out to make sure that you have enough. And then you're also going to need a 4mm crochet hook, some scissors, and then also a yarn needle to weave in your ends. So we're going to begin with the slip knot. So go ahead and grab your yarn and then just wrap it around your fingers, and then you can grab that yarn and pull it through the loop and insert your hook, and then just pull to secure. And we are not going to be doing a starting chain, we're going to be doing a foundation row. So to do that, we're going to chain 2. And then we are going to work our first stitch into that first chain that we made. So yarn over, insert your hook into the back bump of that very first chain, yarn over again, and pull up a loop. So you have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through the first loop only, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops, and that is one foundation half double crochet stitch. And we're going to do it again. So yarn over, and then the bottom of the first one that you made is where you're going to be putting your hook. So insert your hook, make sure it's under both of those loops, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through the first loop only, and then yarn over, pull through all three, and that's our second half double crochet. And then again, yarn over, insert it into the bottom of the previous stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through one loop, yarn over, pull through all three, and that is our third one. And you can see it's creating a row of half double crochets and chains on the bottom. You can see the little V's that it's making, and those little V's are where we are putting our hook. So yarn over, insert your hook again into the V from the previous stitch and work your foundation half double crochet. And we're just going to keep doing this until we have 79 foundation half double crochet stitches. So you want a total of 79 to create row 1. So just continue doing as you have been. Yarn over, insert your hook into the bottom of the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through one, yarn over, pull through all three. Do that until you have 79 stitches complete. Okay, so that completes row 1, and we have 79 foundation half double crochet, and now we're going to start row 2. So you can go ahead and chain 1 and then turn your work. So to start off row 2, we're going to work 1 half double crochet into that very first stitch. So yarn over, insert your hook into the first stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then yarn over, pull through all 3 loops, and that's 1 half double crochet. And then chain 1, and you're going to skip the next stitch and work a second half double crochet into the stitch after the skipped one. So we skipped a stitch and then worked a half double crochet, and then chain 1, skip the next stitch and work a half double crochet into the following, chain 1, skip 1, and half double crochet into the next. So we're just keeping a stitch skipped in between every single stitch, and do this all the way across the row, chain 1, skip 1, one half double crochet until you get to the end. Okay, so now we're at the end of row 2, and you should have a total of 40 half double crochet and 39 chain spaces, and then you can go ahead and chain 1 and turn your work, and we're going to start row 3. So to start off row 3, we always begin with a half double crochet stitch for every single row from here on out. So work your half double crochet stitch, and then you always chain 1 right after that. So half double crochet, chain 1, and then we are going to do our starting feather. So yarn over, insert your hook into the first chain space, yarn over, pull up a loop. You have 3 loops on your hook. And then yarn over, insert your hook into the skipped stitch from row 1. And then yarn over, pull up a loop. Make sure you pull that loop up even with the other loop so that it doesn't tug, and you have 5 loops on your hook. And then yarn over, insert your hook into the next chain space of the current row. Yarn over, pull up a loop. You have 7 loops on your hook, and then yarn over, pull through all 7 loops to complete that feather stitch, and then chain 1. You're always going to be chaining 1 after every feather stitch that you make. So now we're going to be doing the regular feathers, which is the same thing, except you're going to be putting your hook into that same chain space of the last leg of your starting feather. So right here in the same chain space that you worked that last leg, yarn over, insert your hook into that same one, yarn over, pull up a loop for 3 loops, yarn over, insert your hook into the skip stitch from the row below, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then yarn over, insert your hook into that next chain space of the current row, yarn over, pull up a loop. You have 7 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 7 loops, and then chain 1, and that completes our feather stitch. And that's what you're going to be doing across the rest of the row. So in that same space that you worked the last leg, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, insert it into the skip stitch from the row below that one, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then yarn over, insert your hook into the next chain space of the current row, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then yarn over, pull through all 7 loops, and then don't forget to chain 1 afterwards. So you're just going to do this all the way across the row, and every feather stitch that you do, you're going to be working that first yarn over into that chain space that you last worked in from the previous feather, so don't forget that. And then every stitch that you work in is always going to be every stitch that you work in from the row below that is always going to be directly underneath, just so you don't get confused. For every row from here on out, like, it'll always be directly underneath that first yarn over that you do, and then you'll always finish off with the last one in the next chain space of the current row. So just do that all the way to the end. Okay, so I just completed my last feather stitch, and you can see that I ended in that last chain space, and I've chained one. So let me show you that. Just finish your last feather. The last leg will be in the last chain space. Chain one, and then work your final half double crochet into that final stitch of the row, and that completes row 3, and you should have a total of 38 feathers. So you can count your feathers across. You should have a total of 38. And now we're going to start row 4. So start off with that half double crochet stitch and then chain one, like you're going to do throughout the rest of the pattern, and then work your starting feather into that beginning chain space. So yarn over, insert your hook into that first chain space, and then again you're going to work into the space directly below that. So now you can see it looks slightly different than the row 3. We're going to be working them into the spaces. You can see the little holes in between every feather stitch. That's where you will be working. Those are the chain spaces you work into. So go ahead and insert your hook into the space directly below from the row below, and then yarn over, and in the next chain space of the current row is where you're going to insert your hook for all 7 loops. Yarn over, pull through, and then don't forget to chain one. And then you're going to be doing your normal feathers all the way across. So yarn over, insert your hook into that chain space from the last leg, yarn over, insert your hook into the chain space directly below that in the row below, and then yarn over, insert your hook into the next chain space of the current row that you're on, yarn over, pull up a loop, and yarn over, pull through all 7 loops to complete your feather, and then chain one, and this is what you will be repeating all across row 4. So I'll show you again in that last leg that you did from the previous feather, in that last space of the last leg, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, then yarn over into that space from the row below. You can see the little hole, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then again yarn over, insert it into the next chain space of the current row. You'll always have 7 loops on your hook before you yarn over and pull through all 7, and then chain one. Go ahead and repeat the feather all the way across the row. I have the written instructions in my definitions on my pattern if you want to read it as you go. So just work that all the way across, and then I will show you guys how to finish the row and get started on the next one. So go ahead and repeat your feathers all the way across this row. Okay, so now we're coming up at the end of row 4. So we're going to finish our final feather. Yarn over, insert your hook into that last chain space for the last leg of the final feather, and then yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 7, and then we're going to finish the row by chaining one and working 1 half double crochet into that last half double crochet stitch. So that completes row 4, and row 4 is the row that you will be repeating throughout the rest of the pattern, except for one row where we do some decreases. But row 4 is your repeat row, so go ahead and chain one and turn your work, and you're going to be doing that exact same thing all the way back. So again, start off the row by working a half double crochet stitch and a chain one, and then you can work your first feather or the starting feather into the first part. And then after that, do your regular feathers where the first leg is worked into that same section as the last leg of the starting feather, and then chain one, and then repeat it all the way across the row. And don't forget, this is a miniature version that I'm doing here just for the sake of the tutorial. Yours will look a lot bigger and obviously a lot longer once we are through, and I'll show you that. But just for this little video, I'm doing a miniature swatch to show you. But go ahead and repeat row 4 over and over and over and over again until you have the correct amount of rows within the pattern. So rows 5 through 28, you should be repeating row 4. So work your feathers across, end with a half double crochet, chain 1 and turn, and then work another row 4. Do this until you have a total of 28 rows, and then I'll meet you back here to show you guys how to do the next part of the bag. Okay, so now you should be starting row 29, and I will show you guys how to do that. It's going to be the little section that branches off and kind of looks like the bottom of a T. So we're going to be working some slip stitches. So in that very first stitch, work a slip stitch. And then in the next stitch, work a slip stitch. So just in all of these stitches right here, we're just going to be slip stitching across a total of 16 times. So I recommend doing it just into the actual stitch and don't do it into the spaces. I just thought that it turned out a little bit better. I tried it both ways and I preferred this. So slip stitch across a total of 16 times. So in that 16th slip stitch is where we're going to chain 1 and then work our first stitch. So in that same space that you worked the 16th slip stitch, work a half double crochet. So technically we have 15 slip stitches, and then we slip stitched again, worked our half double crochet into the same spot, and then chain 1, and now we're just going to be starting our feather stitches. So yarn over, and in that first chain space is where you're going to be doing your feather stitch. Yarn over and do it in the row below, and then in the next chain space of the current row, yarn over, pull through all 7 and chain 1, and that is our first feather stitch of the row. And now you're going to be doing your regular feather stitches across. So go ahead and just continue working the feather stitches. And you guys should be a pro at these feather stitches now, so I'm not going to repeat out loud how to do them. Just work your feather stitches across. And for the bag, this is row 29, and then you should also have a total of 23 feathers when you are done with this row. We are not going to be working all the way to the end because we want to leave 15 stitches unworked like we have on the right side. We want to do the same thing on the other end of the row. So continue until you have 23 feathers, and then I will show you guys how to finish the row. Basically, we're just going to end with our half double crochet stitch into the 16th stitch from the end of the row. So obviously mine is the smaller swatch here, but you can see count over from the end of the very left, 15 stitches in, and make sure that you leave those unworked. And then in that 16th stitch, so you can count over from left to right, leave 15 stitches unworked. And then in that 16th stitch is where you will be working your final half double crochet stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and finish that last feather here for my little swatch. Chain 1, and then in that next stitch, work your half double crochet. So once that half double crochet is worked, you can count your stitches, and you should have a total of 15 stitches on both sides unworked. So you'll have 15 slip stitches on this side, and then on the other side you will have 15 unworked stitches. And don't forget, you did slip stitch 16 times over here, but because we worked our first half double crochet stitch into that, we are not counting it. So just make sure you have 15 stitches on both sides unworked. And that is the end of row 29. You should have 23 feathers. Go ahead, chain 1 and turn your work. And now for rows 30 through 65, you are just going to continue repeating row 4. So we're doing the same thing now that you have been doing, except the length of your row is a little bit shorter, so you have less stitches to make. So just go ahead and continue working your feather stitches as normal. Start off each row with the beginning feather stitch, work your feather stitches across in the row with a chain 1 and a half double crochet, and then chain 1 and turn your work, and just repeat it all the way until you have a total of 65 rows. Okay, so now you should have a total of 65 rows from start to finish. And now we are on row 66, and this row is very simple, and this is going to end our main body of the bag. So once you have finished that last feather row, go ahead and chain 1 and turn your work. And for row 66, we're just going to be working 1 half double crochet into every single stitch and chain stitch across. So work 1 half double crochet into that first, half double crochet into the next, and you're just going to be working 1 half double crochet stitch into each one. So I worked mine into the actual chain stitches and not the chain spaces. You can do it however you prefer. I just liked the way that it looked this way better. So just work 1 stitch into each one across, and you should have a total of 49 half double crochet when you get to the end. So just go ahead and work 1 in each stitch across. Okay, and this is what it should look like when you get to the end of the row, just a row of half double crochet stitches, a total of 49, and then you can just go ahead and tie off your work. So just go ahead and pull the yarn through and cut the tail, and now we will be seaming our bag together, so I'll show you guys how to do that. Okay, so first thing you want to do is lay your piece out in front of you right side up. So the tail of your starting row should be on the right hand side. And what we're going to be doing is seaming the short sides of our bag up like this to create the bottom of the bag, and then we will continue seaming the side of the wider portion to the side of the thinner portion to create the side of the bag. So it's really easy. It's just 2 seams, basically 1 on each side of the bag. You only have to join 1 time on each side, and then you can just keep going. And you can use a needle and your preferred stitch and just sew it however you would like, but I like to use my hook and slip stitch across, so I'll show you how to do that. So first you'll want to fold up that short side of the bag so that it's laying evenly to the long piece. I know that can sound a little confusing, but visually you should be able to see what I am doing here. And then you just want to attach your yarn, slip stitch it to join in the very bottom corner, and just make sure that everything is like evenly, nicely lined up, and that there's no wrinkles or anything like that, or it's not scrunched up. And then you're just going to be inserting your hook through both of the panels and yarning over and pulling through so that you are slip stitching to join. Make sure you're not pulling the slip stitches too tightly, but you can see I'm just working into the sides of the row plus the skip stitches or the slip stitches from those 15 that we skipped in that row and that we're joining right here. And that creates the bottom seam of our bag, this little short seam here. Now don't tie off, we're going to fold the rest of the bottom of the bag up so that it is matching the side of the upper part. So you've just seamed the bottom portion, and now we're going to continue up the side of the bag and seam the side. So if you are using your hook and slip stitching, you can just fold it up and then just keep going. So insert your hook, make sure you're going through both panels, and then just yarn over and pull through, slip stitching to join. Just make sure that you are keeping the panels even and that the tops of the bag are even across. You can use stitch markers if you need to, if it'll help you keep your place a little bit more. I just held my hands on both of the panels to make sure everything was even. You can see here that the tops of the bag are even, so you just want to check that throughout. And then just continue slip stitching until you get to the very end up at the top, and then we will tie off and repeat on the other side. Okay, and once you get to the top, you can just go ahead and tie off your yarn. So just yarn over, pull through, and cut the yarn. And then we're going to repeat the same thing on the other side. And when we finish the other side, make sure you do not tie off once you complete the second side over here. We're going to continue on from where we go to create the upper trim. So just pointing that out, you can see here where we've seamed, it created the bottom seam of the bag and then the side seam up the back corner of the bag. And then now we're going to repeat it on the other side. And also pointing out the side seam isn't directly in the middle of the bag. It is off to one side. So just if you're wondering if yours doesn't look even, it is not supposed to. So I'm just pointing that out as well. Don't worry about that. And now we're going to repeat the same thing. So you can go ahead and take your yarn and just join again at the bottom corner. Right here where the little corner is, and then slip stitch across the bottom seam of the bag, and then go ahead and continue all the way up the side. So once you slip stitch the bottom, go ahead and fold the sides together and slip stitch up the side as well. And then when you get to the end, don't tie off, and we'll go directly into the trim section. Okay, so now I've seamed up the second side of my bag, and you can just chain one at this point, but do not tie off. So chain one, and then after you chain one, go ahead and turn your bag right side out so that the seams are now on the inside of the bag. And then we're going to go directly into the trim. So go ahead and turn your bag out. And now we're going to work the upper part of the bag. Okay, so now I've turned my bag right side out. I've chained one, and we're going to begin round one of the trim. I've also switched to the normal size bag, so this should look exactly like yours is. And I'm going to pick back up here with you guys. So you're going to be working 1 half double crochet stitch into every stitch around. So in that very first half double crochet right after the side seam is where you'll be working your first stitch. Make sure that you don't accidentally skip it. Sometimes they can be a little bit hidden up against the side seam, but just go ahead and work 1 stitch into every single stitch all the way around until you get back to the beginning. Okay, so now I've worked all the way around, and I have a total of 128 half double crochet, and you're going to slip stitch to join in that very first half double crochet stitch that you made. So you can go ahead and count your stitches, make sure you have 128, and then slip stitch to join to the first stitch made. Go ahead and chain one, and then work 1 half double crochet into that first stitch, 1 half double crochet into the next stitch, and just continue like you have been in the previous row, except now we're going to be adding little holes for our strap. So you want to work 15 half double crochet, so go ahead and do that. And you should also be following along with the written pattern here so that you can see the exact stitch counts for all of these. It might be a little bit confusing with the stitch count, so just so you don't lose track of where you are, I recommend following along with that, because I won't be showing you every single stitch since it's the same exact thing around. So go ahead and work your 15 half double crochet, and then I'll show you here how to do the hole for the strap. So once you've made 15, you're going to go ahead and chain 2, and then skip the next 2 stitches, leave those unworked, and then work 1 half double crochet in the stitch directly after that. And then continue by working 10 more half double crochet, so a total of 11 half double crochet here. And then you're going to do the same thing, chain 2 and skip 2. So far for this round, you should have 15 half double crochet, chain 2, skip 2, 11 half double crochet, which is where we are at right now. And then we are going to do another hole for the strap. So now work chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches, and then go ahead and work 18 half double crochet. And then after the 18 half double crochet, you will work chain 2, skip 2, and then 11 half double crochet, chain 2, skip 2, 16 half double crochet, chain 2, skip 2, 11 half double crochet, chain 2, skip 2, 18 half double crochet, chain 2, skip 2, 11 half double crochet, chain 2, skip 2, and then 1 half double crochet in the very last stitch, and then you will be slip stitching to your first half double crochet made of the round. So go ahead and work that around. I have it all written down on my blog and in the PDF pattern if you want to follow along, but work that for the round and I'll meet you back here at the end. Okay, so that's the end of round 2. You should have a total of 112 half double crochet and 8 chain 2 spaces. So just slip stitch to join to the very first half double crochet made to finish off that round. And now we will begin round 3. So go ahead and chain 1, and for this round you'll be working 1 half double crochet stitch into every stitch around, and then when you get to the chain spaces you'll be working 2 half double crochet stitches into each chain space. Okay, so you see when I get here to the chain 2 space, I'm going to be working my stitches directly into the space, not into the actual chain stitch. So every time you come up to one of these chain spaces, just work 2 half double crochet into each one of them, and then you can see this half double crochet right next to it can get a little confusing. Do not skip it. It looks a little bit different when it's on the edge of the hole like that, so make sure that you don't accidentally skip it, and insert your hook into that one to start off after working it into the hole, and then continue around, and do this for every single stitch and chain space all the way around the round. Okay, and you should have a total of 128 half double crochet stitches at the end of round 3. Go ahead and slip stitch to join to the first stitch made, chain 1, and then for round 4 you're just going to be working 1 half double crochet stitch into every single stitch around. So go ahead and do that. And once you get back to the beginning, you can just go ahead and slip stitch to join into the very first stitch made, and then tie off your work. That completes the main body of the bag. So just go ahead and tie off, and then we will be starting the strap of our bag. So you can go ahead and set the bag aside, and now we will be taking a new thread of yarn and starting out the strap. So go ahead and create a slip knot, and then insert your hook and pull it down to secure. And the strap is really simple. Go ahead and chain 8. So yarn over and pull through 8 times. And for the strap, we will be working in continuous rounds. So no joining, no turning, no chaining, nothing like that. So in the first chain that you made, insert your hook. And this is the chain where we will be working our first stitch. So insert your hook into that first chain made. Make sure that your chain is not twisted, so just make sure all the stitches are not twisted, and then work a single crochet stitch into that first chain that you made, and then a single crochet stitch into the next one, a single crochet into the third, and just do this all the way around. So you should finish with 8 single crochet. So once you work your 8th single crochet, you don't have to join or anything like that. You're just going to continue working. So I just pulled my tail through so that my right side of the stitches are on the outside. So you can go ahead and do that at this point as well. And then you can double check, make sure you have 8 single crochet all the way around. And once you do that, there's no need to keep track of your stitch count or your round count. You'll just be working 1 single crochet stitch into every single stitch around for continuous rounds. So just keep working, going around and around and around until your strap measures approximately 55 inches long. If you want a strap that's a little longer or a little shorter, You can add or take away rounds here, but I just went about 55 inches on mine. So go ahead and work one stitch into every single stitch around. And then I will meet you guys back here when you're at about 55 inches, and I'll show you how to thread it through the bag and to sew the sides together. All right, and once your bag has reached about 55 inches in length, we're gonna go ahead and thread it through. So you can go ahead and tie off on the end here, and then just leave your yarn long enough to sew the two ends together. So it doesn't have to be too long. I would give about 8 inches of yarn just in case. Mine is a little bit longer than what you need. I just kept it on just in case to see if I made any changes in the pattern design, but just as long as you have about 6 to 8 inches of a tail, that should be fine. And now we're going to thread it through the holes of the trim of our bag. So you can lay your bag out in front of you and just lay it out flat, and then you can see the 4 holes on the front of the bag here. On the one on the right hand side, you're going to insert the strap from the front into the back, and then from the back to the front, just kind of weaving it through. And then so you can leave that side, the left side, where it is, and we're going to continue on threading the rest of the strap through. So we're just going to be weaving it in and out. So now this side of the strap is going to go from the outside of the bag to the inside of the bag. So go ahead and thread it through. And then you'll go from the inside of the bag to the outside of the bag on the next hole. So you're not skipping any holes or anything, you're just weaving it in and out. So go ahead and go from the inside to the outside, pull it all the way through. And then again from the outside to the inside on the next hole. And then the inside to the outside on the next hole. And then keep going and pull from the outside to the inside. And also as you're weaving it through, just make sure that your strap isn't twisted. It will look a little naturally twisted just because of the continuous rounds, but just make sure there's like no knots or any extreme twists. So then go ahead and pull it through from the outside to the inside once again. And then one more time from the inside to the outside on that last hole here. And then this is where we will be joining the two ends together to create a one entire circular strap. So you're going to need a yarn needle at this point, and I will show you guys how to join the two sides together. Okay, so I've just tucked the tail of the first end of the strap into the hole there, and now I'm just going to take my yarn needle and use the tail of yarn that I left over to sew the two pieces together. So just make sure again that your strap is weaved in correctly before you do this part, because you won't be undoing this part afterwards. So we're going to sew it together to create one long tube. So just take your yarn needle, and I took my needle and I just threaded it through from the outside to the inside of one side of the tube, and then threaded it through the stitch lined up to it on the other side of the tube. And you just do this all the way around. If you have a preferred method on how to sew it together, or whichever stitch that you want to use, that's completely fine. Our goal here is to just sew the two ends of the tube together to finish off the strap. So go ahead and do that all the way around, joining the two ends together. Okay, and then the only thing left to do after that is to weave in the ends. So after you've sewn the two sides together, you can just thread the tail of the yarn through and kind of push it down a bunch of rows and then tug it all the way through. And you can go ahead and cut the excess yarn off here and then just tuck in the end into the tube. And then you'll want to also weave in the ends of your bag. So you can go ahead and grab all of the ends and thread it through your needle and weave it back and forth through the stitches a few times, and then just go ahead and cut the extra tail of yarn off of those as well. So here's just a little sample. I like to weave my ends in on the inside of the bag so that it is less visible. So go ahead and thread the ends of the yarn, and then you can just weave back and forth a few times up and down the rows. So I like to go at least twice, 2 or 3 times. So go down one direction and then you can thread it back the other direction and then just cut off the extra yarn. So go ahead and do that to all of your ends, and then that completes the bag pattern. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know if you have any questions or comments down below, and thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you next time in the next video.